course you know there was the World Series of Poker.
Ooh.
Is that masturbation or something? I mean, what the hell?
Now we got the World Series of Spades in the house.
Winner gets $500,000 pot.
Winning the prize is what it's all about.
Failure is not an option.
Oh!
We're gonna get this money.
We're on a mission to find the best spades players in the world.
May the best team win, and may the losers get a drink.
I'm coming after that money so I can have all the things I want for that house that you promised me.
Yeah. Look, you may have seen the game of spades being played at your uncle's house, at a funeral, church, a cookout, but now we're bringing the game of spades to you, your house.
Come on, play.
I'm playing, hold on, give me a minute.
Everyone's competitive, and if you know how to play, it's anyone's game.
When you come, bring your A game.
In this spades tournament, people come from all walks of life, from all over the world.
Learned to play while traveling through Europe, and I've been whooping ass ever since.
From Asia, from Australia, Africa.
But at the end of the day, when you're sitting across the table, we're all the same people, baby. It's anyone's game.
Look, I know you sitting back asking yourself, how is this different from poker? Everything, goddammit.
Both is contemplating, and he throws off.
This game requires teamwork, and you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Spades is a game of luck and skills.
The game of spades requires teamwork, skills, and awareness. But my favorite part is when everybody's talking.
Is that the good old Queen of Spades in your hand?
Gonna find out.
No, it is not. Translation?
Negative.
That's a part of the game.
There's only two professionals on this table.
Yep, me and her.
Our strategy is when we get down on the table, we talk so much mess.
Take.
That's your emotion? But let me show you my emotion.
What's your emotion?
And then they'll make a mistake.
That's a deuce.
That's how we did it back in the day.
A lot of players will try to throw you off game, but you gotta make sure your job is stay on point and stay sharp at all times. Whether it's for the pride or for a prize, one thing for sure, you either gotta go hard in this game or take your ass home.
It's not my fault. I was dealt these cards.
In this game, you're gonna see the highs,
Let's go!
the lows.
We're down 132 points.
You're gonna let them beat us?
Yes.
Get it together.
The meltdown,
It's on my hand. It's on her. It's on her.
Calm it down, motherfucker.
the egos.
We haven't lost in a long time.
Victim after victim has fallen defeat.
Everybody talking shit, getting up in each other's face.
Let me get that one too. God damn it.
Ain't no need for you to put on your poker face for this card game.
I'm done. Fuck this.
No crying in spades.
This right here is the World Series of Spades.
500 years, we have neglected the greatest evil of our time, which is white supremacy.
White supremacy is a system that dominates everything that non-white people do 24 hours a day.
You have blatantly racist people in the judicial system.
We can talk about racism within the Chicago Police Department.
White supremacy has infiltrated every institution and every culture in our country.
A confused people will always be dominated by people who are not confused. And the black people of this entire planet are totally confused in all of the areas of activity. Economics.
Black people are economically sick, and we're being given the wrong economic medicine.
Education.
They're building penitentiaries instead of schools.
Entertainment.
They have been feeding our children toxic messages through music on a regular basis.
Labor.
White people are going to continue to put into their own community, and black people don't trust their own.
Law.
The war on drugs has destroyed our country.
Politics.
We give away our vote and don't ask for anything in exchange.
Religion.
Religion is one of the biggest things used to divide us.
White supremacy and religion go hand in hand.
Sex.
You have a lot of brothers that grow up thinking that light-skinned women are more attractive than dark-skinned women.
And war.
It's been instilled in us since back in slavery to divide us as a race.
It's on the three classifications of people: white, non-white, and white supremacy.
White supremacy is global. Throughout all the Americas, throughout Europe, throughout Africa, Asia, even Australia, there's no area in the world that white supremacy did not go into. So it's cultural and it's systemic. And the sad thing is that most white Americans, I don't think, are really aware of these things. You have genuine, overtly white supremacists operating. And then you have the covert white supremacists operating. And then you have the people that are white supremacists that aren't really aware that they're white supremacists, but yet they are fighting to protect white America, and they're white nationalists, and they operate from that point of view.
In 1960, a police officer would tell you to your face that you were a nigger, and they would let you know that they were racist. Today, it's a whole lot different. Your supervisor at your job, your friends, they can all smile in your face and be racist behind your back.
I think we have to get out of this idea that white people love us, because they don't. They just, as a community, as a collective, they pretty much see us as the abused wife. They want us to stay in the marriage, but they're never going to treat you as an equal, and that's not something that they've ever been incentivized to do.
White people are indifferent, white people are apathetic, and they have 1,000 different codes and 1,000 different ways of propaganda. They're pointing the finger at the victim. They're going after the Altons and the Mike Browns and the Freddie Grays and the Trayvon Martin. They say things like, oh, he was wearing a hoodie. Oh, he was selling cigarettes. Oh, he's race baited. Or, oh, they're playing the race card. Or, all lives matter.
Of course all lives matter. Of course all lives matter. But what is the pressing issue at this moment right now? It's that Black lives matter. They're not treated equally across the board.
We're not saying that all the other communities don't need help or that the other nationalities don't need the help. What we're saying is we show the signs of the community that needs the most help. And it is up to us to do that work.
People have never achieved equality or freedom through begging. It has never worked throughout all of human history, so it's not going to work for you now.
In order for us to have a movement, in order for us to really get some things done, we first have to make sure that our house is in financial order.
Black people are in poverty because of the legacy of slavery, because of the legacy and the continuation of white supremacy.
The The Bible says that wine maketh merry, food maketh the stomach full, but money answereth all things. Interesting. The Bible is saying money answereth all things.
And if we don't have a economic foundation, we can't do anything. You cannot move without a dollar.
We are the lesser population making the lesser income, but spending more as consumer. And that to me does not make sense.
If you give your money away, then you're pretty much giving all your power away.
We're so materialistic.
All we do is shop. All we do is patronize entertainers and patronize entertainment.
We spend over $1 trillion in goods and services, and half of that money is gone to people that don't look like us.
We give our money to the people with the corner stores. They do nothing for our community at all.
In the black community, our dollar doesn't even last 24 hours. It doesn't even circulate 24 hours. But you look at the Jewish community, it's about 19 days approximately. You look at the Asian community, it's damn near a month.
When you circulate money, what happens is the money literally multiplies before your eyes. So let's say, for example, I got $1. Well, that dollar doesn't disappear just because I spent it. That dollar, it just exchanges hands. The next person gets to use it, and the next person, and the next person, etc. So if I give that dollar to Walmart, Kmart, Target, or some white guy, that money's not coming back to my community. That means I spent $1. My community benefits from having $1, and that's it. But if I give the dollar to black people who are practicing group economics, here's what happens. That dollar doesn't disappear. That next person gets to use the dollar. So then that third person also gets to use the dollar, because if all of them are playing the same group economics game, then all of them are going to pass that dollar to black people, like a hot potato that you want to hold on to. So ultimately, that dollar becomes $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 at least, in terms of the number of times that dollar gets to be spent. So instead of your community getting $1 for dollar, you're getting $5 for every dollar, or $7 for every dollar, depending on how well your group economic system works. So I think for us, we really believe that there are certain things we simply cannot do without help from white people. And I just vehemently reject that idea entirely.
It's simple economics. Black-owned business, black spending equals black thriving. Black-owned business and white spending does not equal black thriving for us. There's no way that equation works out for us if it doesn't happen.
The important thing we have to understand, right, when it comes to group economics, is that we gotta build infrastructure. So people say, oh, yo, let's pool our money together. Let's build the Black Wall Street. Well, how's that look, though? If you wanna pool your money together, you wanna build a Black Wall Street, there has to be an infrastructure in place. We gotta be sophisticated and civilized about how we create our businesses.
I have a group of people that I trade with all the time, and I loan them money, they loan us money, I make investments in their projects, they invest in mine. So building an economic system, whether it's big or small, is all about having an economic machine that works to provide you with security so everybody can feed their kids and raise their families and be okay.
When it comes to group economics, I totally believe in it. I believe in it so much, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars to create our own real estate fund, which is a Tulsa real estate fund. So everyone that invests in Tulsa Real Estate Fund will have a minimum investment of $50. You can buy a brick of Black Wall Street for $50. And not only does that money support the investment and development, you get an 8% preferred return on your money and your prorated share of equity in the project. So now your grandma to a 16-year-old kid can invest in a fund, be an owner of a hotel or a hospital or a building, and reap the benefits, the financial benefits, and be a part of a larger collective.
It's time for us to go back into our own community and start buying up property. You know that crack house that's down the street? We can turn that into a daycare, maybe even a school or community center. That abandoned parking lot that's on MLK Drive, we can turn that into a garden to grow our own fruits and vegetables that we can sell at a black-owned grocery store that's employing melanated people. So let's buy the block, because at the end of the day, it boils down to real estate.
Real estate is the core of power and control. All the wars are fought over what? Over real estate, over resources. The earth is one big ball of real estate. So those who own win.
Most black people don't know anything about a Roth IRA. They don't know anything about a 401k plan. They know they got one if they got a job, but they don't know what to do with it.
Growing up, they would say, cash is king, but credit is actually king. Your credit is what keeps you afloat when you don't have any money, but you have credit cards, or you can go get an instant loan if you have a flat tire, or you going through a divorce, or even if you're getting married, you can just sign your name on a dotted line. Credit is also important if you want to become a homeowner, or you want to own a new vehicle or used. When you need a student loan, You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you need credit.
We have to start teaching economics in the home. That's where it starts. That's where the economic base starts.
The acronym that I put together is a model I call the KID model, KID. KID stands for Knowledge, Investment, Discipline. Knowledge means that in your household, your child learns financial literacy and entrepreneurship before they learn how to dribble a basketball, throw a football, sing, dance, rap, act, all this other nonsense that our kids are learning. They learn how to start a business because that is critical for their survival. Before you send them to college, don't send them to college without putting them in an entrepreneurship program. Investment means that from the time your child is born, you buy them $100 worth of stock every month. It doesn't matter which stock you buy. The theory shows that if you just buy $100 worth of stock every month for your child and you do it over a 20, 30, 40-year period, by the time your child is 30, they're going to have at least $300,000 or $400,000 available in capital. That's going to be money that they can use to buy a home. It's going to be money they can use to start a business. They can get married without going into debt. They can go to college without getting massive student loans and dying in debt, all these other things. So you invest in your child so that when they get this knowledge, they can apply the knowledge because they have a capital base that they can work with. Discipline allows them to have the ability to say, I'm going to invest in my life right now so that in the future I can have a better life. If you work your ass off your whole life and you accumulate some wealth and leave it to your kids, there is a 70% chance that your children will blow all of that money. 70% of all wealthy families lose all their money in the next generation. And I think it's 90% lose it within 2 generations. So what does that mean? That means that everything you learn, everything that you apply to make yourself successful, you must prepare your children to not only know how to go out there and get that money, but to also know how to protect the money that's given to them. My kids are not gonna have full access to my wealth until they're about 35 or 40 years old. They'll get pieces of it as they go along, but it's not until about the age of 40 that kids are mature enough to know how to preserve wealth. So building wealth is hard to do, but it's very simple steps. Once you build it, you must protect it. And that doesn't just mean protect it while you're here, it means protecting it after you're gone.
When Hitler rose to power, what did they burn? They burned books.
Education has the power to change the trajectory of any nation and any community and any person. But when we are not giving a fair education, when we're not receiving the equal education, then we must press the issue about raising the answer, a question of why.
They close the schools in the community where there's a heartbeat of each community, and they send them over where families don't feel safe to travel because of territory, because someone asked them who you riding with, and you answer no, and they shoot you anyway.
My dream and my hope would be that one day we could teach the actual accurate history, which is not taught. The history that is taught is from a European point of view, it's from a white point of view.
Tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Why would you take slavery out of a textbook to teach it? They absolutely should not take any history out of any book. Good, the bad, or the ugly.
You know, they create heroes and they say that our founding fathers were heroic, but yet many of our founding fathers were savages in the way that they treated people of color.
How are our textbooks leaving out these little snippets of history that my people have contributed? So, do we need a Black History Month? No, we need to include Black people in America's history. It's what we need to do, because America's history is Black history. There's no need for a Black History Month because January is Black History Month. February is Black History Month. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December.
You know, one of the biggest lies that Black people have been fed is that we are so pathetic, that we are so ignorant, we are so weak, we are so broke, that we don't have the ability to educate our own children. And so one of the biggest mistakes that we make as a community is that we hand our children right over to not only their oppressor, but to a system that's proven that it ruins more Black children than it actually strengthens.
I think it's very important for us to educate our own youth, because as we look across the nation, we see the lack of African-American male teachers, African-American female teachers, the lack of Black teachers as a whole.
When you look at the scope of teachers in these classrooms, generally speaking, a lot of times they're white women who can't necessarily relate to us, so when we quote-unquote act out, they already are looking at us like a nuisance. Statistically speaking, we're 3 times as likely to get expelled or suspended versus our counterpart because they don't know how to deal with us.
I absolutely think that we should have our own schools. I think it will benefit us.
If we're constantly being taught by other people about their race, their language, their heritage, their culture, their way of thinking, we're only prepared to solve their problems.
If we could structure our schools where we're teaching our children in a way they can be taught, we're teaching them things that they want to learn, we're teaching them things that they need to learn, and on top of that, they're looking around and seeing their own reflection.
We need to make sure that the Black church is investing in our young people so that they will invest in a community that they change and that they help change for us.
Remember that all the information that you need to educate a child is right there on the internet. There are thousands of experts out here who run homeschools online where you can educate your kids. So I would argue that we have to just yank our kids out of these systems instantly because these systems are destroying our children.
And if your child is going to be in a white school, it's important that when your child comes home, you cross-reference everything. Just take a few minutes and say, what did you learn today? Is that what they told you about Christopher Columbus? Let me tell you the truth.
You know, a lot of us today, what we lack are like plumbers or your mechanics. Those are dying fields, and I think having those Black schools and institutions will be able to promote some of those dying fields, dying industries, and some of the things that we need to sustain.
I would like for my daughters to go to a HBCU. I even try to pick their colleges for them now because I think it's important to see other African Americans doing great things.
You can't mention HBCUs without mentioning American history or world history. Look at some of the great minds and the great thinkers, the great leaders that have come out of HBCUs. You have your Booker T. Washington, you have your Martin Luther King, your Ida B. Wells. George Washington Carver was not necessarily an HBCU graduate, but he played a huge role in Tuskegee.
Whenever you want to conquer a group of people, first thing you do is you either destroy their media or you take over the media. Ultimately, for Black people, one of the greatest things that's been used against us throughout history, more specifically in the last 20, 30 years, is the fact that they've allowed these white corporations to take over media. Around the time of the Million Man March, Bill Clinton, y'all's buddy, signed a bill basically allowing corporations like Clear Channel to go and buy up all the radio stations.
When you are funded by somebody at a high level, you have to say what they want you to say in a sense. It's not freedom of speech or freedom of expression. It's only when it's independent and you are not financed by anyone where you can tell the truth.
Black Lives Matter is a hate group.
The media perpetuates white supremacy by these negative stereotypes and portrayals of people of color.
For example, the whole thug terminology. You know, a young Black man is a thug, but then when a young white person does it, he's misguided. And if you actually go back in time, thug was first used up against white immigrants, Scottish, the Italian that were coming in, were not necessarily blacks, just like the altercation with the director from Birth of a Nation. Unfortunately, the situation happened, it was what it was, but the evidence came out to prove that this man was innocent and he wasn't a rapist, but when the media spun it, every headline you saw was rapist, 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 rapist. And you take Brock Turner, the young white swimmer from Stanford, sex abuser, sex abuser, sex abuser. So why is it that one man, a Black man, is held in regard as a rapist and he was proven innocent, and you have actual evidence, physical evidence to prove that Brock Turner actually raped this woman and he's a sexual abuser? This is the type of stuff that media does, and this is why I say media needs to be held accountable.
These people in the Middle East, like ISIS, they want to kill you, they want to kill me, they want to kill your kids, they want to kill everybody.
I do not look at the media as a reliable source. I think they're sensational. I don't think they're doing citizens a justice. You're relying on a very competitive news media source that has an editor and an agenda and a producer to tell you what just went on. And if it bleeds, it leads.
And if they repeat it enough, people will believe it. So that's why you have Fox News repeating the same thing, MSNBC repeating the same thing.
Until we start controlling the propaganda that's put out about us, It's always going to be other people's perspective or what they want to write or say about us.
It's important for us to have true independent black media outlets. And what is a true independent black media outlet? Is one that is funded by other African Americans or black people and not by a major corporation, right? We even look at Black Lives Matter, funded by George Soros. So that's his agenda. That's not a true Black Lives Matter from black people. That's his agenda, because he who pays the fiddler calls the tune.
I just think the change should be that it's more production and definitely more quality entertainment and writing and directing and movies and scripts and that kind of thing.
A lot of people don't realize that because you have a black writer, a black producer, a black director, a black lead, yes, it is predominantly a black story, a black film, but you have to understand who controls the distribution are white people or Jewish people. You can sit there and say, yes, Tyler Perry, but Tyler Perry still has to answer to Lionsgate, which is not black owned. That's who distributes his films. So until we control distribution and lock that down, our stories are going to be limited to what they are told to a certain point.
The slave movies, get rid of them. They don't help at all. You know, they rarely show the revolts, which would show, you know, like people didn't just take what was given to them and wait for a law to be passed. It was actually something being done. We need more movies to show those psychological thrillers or those moments of the effects of slavery and how it's still affecting us today.
There are vast and powerful changes that are occurring. Black media is getting stronger every year. You have a black film industry that's growing, where you got these small independent black films that are literally making hundreds of thousands, some making millions of dollars, and you're seeing people kind of responding to that.
There was two kinds of slaves. There was the house Negro and the field Negro. The house Negro, they lived in the house with master. They dressed pretty good. They ate good because they ate his food, what he left. They lived in the attic or the basement, but still they lived near their master. And they loved their master more than the master loved himself. They would give their life to save their master's house quicker than the master would. If the master's house caught on fire, the house Negro would fight harder to put the blaze out than the master would. If the master got sick, the house Negro would say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick, we sick." He identified himself with his master more than his master identified with himself. And if you came to the house Negro and said, "Let's run away, let's escape, let's separate," that house Negro would look at you and say, "Man, you crazy. What you mean separate? Where is there a better house than this? Where can I wear better clothes than this? Where can I eat better food than this?" That was that house Negro. In those days, he was called a house nigger. And that's what we call him today, because we still got some house niggers running around here.
The only thing we've ever done, we did it because the white man gave us a platform upon which to do it. He helped us. He built schools for us and let us go. He built highways so we could travel.
I think that historically we've always believed that the best way to get ahead in America is to gain favoritism with the white man and to sort of get that borrowed power that he lends to you. Guys like Barkley, Charles Barkley, Stephen A. Smith, Stacey Dash.
Some of them are puppets for white supremacy because they get something out of it. They benefit from it in some way.
I think we should have a code of conduct. We should have a standard of behavior for these individuals. And it should be simply based on the very firm idea of reciprocity. You get something from us, you need to give back. In the Jewish community, same thing. If you become a wealthy, famous Jew, you can't neglect your community and then get invited to synagogue. They're gonna kick you out. They're gonna be like, "No, you're not a real Jew. You're not one of us because you're not giving back from the pool from which you came."
My message to the entertainment community is get involved at whatever level you can. So I understand many of you have careers, you gotta be strategic. That's cool. We can do things behind the scenes. We can play chess, not checkers. So if you're an entertainer, you can't be on the front line. Support those of us who are on the front line. Don't exclude yourself in the fight for our people. Because one day Tamir Rice or Sandra Bland or Trayvon Martin or Eric Garner gonna be your Uncle Eric or your cousin Sandra or your son Trayvon.
I think that these people have a social responsibility. That social responsibility comes in a lot of different ways. It could be monetary, it could be speaking up, it could also be shutting the hell up when you don't know what you're talking about.
When we have celebrities that go off into the stratosphere making all this money for white folks, especially if they're selling the hood. You got rappers that are selling the hood. They're selling their black authenticity to all white audiences who pay money to see them on stage with gold grills and big chains, acting like big gorillas and calling themselves niggas. So these white people are paying you all this money to sell the authenticity that was given to you by the black community. Well, you owe the black community something.
By definition, right, Africans in America are second-class citizens. A second-class citizen is somebody that's not accorded a fair share in a society as others in that society. So if we know we second-class citizens, yo, you can't, just because you got your bag up, you just can't forget about the rest of us. Like, there's crabs in the barrel, but then we got the crabs out of the barrel. Well, you done got out, you never look back. Like, don't be that person, that's corny, like, that's lame. Like, be a real man, be somebody that Malcolm can be proud of, Martin can be proud of, Marcus can be proud of. Like, that's who we should be trying to be like, not Big Meech, Frank Lucas, Rich Porter. Like, we done gave ourselves the wrong role models and heroes. Like, yo, be more like Malcolm and less like somebody that's destroying our community.
Team owners have every right to enforce rules, and standing for the anthem should be one of them. And President Trump has every right to defend our country, our anthem, and our flag. If that offends you, too bad.
Since we were kids, we had to stand to the flag, put our hand over our heart, sing the Star Spangled Banner. We didn't really think about the words that went into it. We didn't think about where this came from. The writer of the poem, Francis Scott Key, was a racist. At that time in history, if you were a smart, intelligent person, you were a racist. You had racist views. And so a lot of people didn't know that a racist actually wrote that, and they didn't know that parts of it were taken out that were blatantly racist and a slap in the face. So I think it was good when Colin Kaepernick got down on one knee and started this whole uproar. And I think it's forcing people to look into more things that maybe they didn't look into before. They're getting that information, and my stance has always been no black person has any business singing the Star Spangled Banner because it was not written for you. It was written in spite of you.
For black folks, the key to freedom economically is entrepreneurship, learning how to find money. You know, America's the richest country in the world. There's money floating around everywhere. There's money in the atmosphere if you know how to find it. And what is unfortunate is that we don't know how to find money, but we know how to find jobs. And what's difficult, though, is that we don't have as many jobs available as we need. So when I hear black folks complaining to me about how they're being treated on the corporate plantation, I don't really always know what to say, because my reaction is, well, why don't you leave? Why would you stay in a situation that's that abusive? Well, a lot of times they don't leave because they don't have any other options. Well, you don't have any other options because nobody ever trained you how to pursue those other options. It's just like saying, I'm starving to death because I went to McDonald's and Applebee's and Burger King and they were all closed. Well, the question somebody should also ask you is, well, did you know that you can also cook your own food? Did you know you can even grow your own food and then cook it, and even have your own grocery store and supply food to other people? I think that we have to know how to think about how this whole system works from the position of both the consumer and the supplier.
So if you want to leave corporate America, plan for it. Plan for it a year in advance. You already know what you want to do. If you want to be a handbag designer, you want to sell weed, you want to be a bricklayer, just plan it.
For us, apparel is a no-brainer. Instead of saying, like, I have a boutique, let's put together a manufacturing company. Let's partner up with another successful boutique owner who's probably on their second or third, and another one who's on their second and third, and collectively get a manufacturing company. Now, if you get a manufacturing company, not only do you control the cost of your overhead, but you also provide jobs for your community, which is just coming back to you.
One of the problems that we do have is that because success in some circles can be so rare, you have everybody kind of preying on that one person who's able to succeed. And there are a few things more stressful than having a little bit of money and being surrounded by people who ain't got no money. It becomes very difficult for you to maintain the success you have, because success grows out of a community the way a certain kind of soil will grow a flower. So you can't have a healthy flower in the middle of toxic soil. So it's very difficult for you to have a healthy economic entity in the middle of a situation where everybody's trying to just sort of prey off of that one person who's successful. So we should want more success, because that breeds success for all of us.
We like to romanticize Africa, but Africa had a lot of its own issues. When you look at the history of it, a lot of the problems that came out of it was disunity and distrust for each other. So when it comes down to getting the job done, we are always going to choose the white person over the black person because we have these stereotypes that we've bought into ourselves. Negative stereotypes about ourselves, that black people are lazy. And this has always hurt us. So we have to get to the point where we're no longer looking at things as just individualistic achievements, and we're looking at it as a collective, as a whole. How can we help each other?
I feel that sometimes we as African Americans, minorities, feel that if we see another black-owned business, yeah, we want to support, but we want to buy it at a discount. And the first thing that somebody might say is, well, I don't want to do business with them. Or even worse, that's why I don't do business with black people. Like, that's the worst thing you can say.
It's very important that black businesses take the time to get educated and trained on how to be a good black business, on how to be a better black business.
It is very important to have a code of conduct in business because it illustrates accountability.
As business owners, we have to have great customer service, great skills, and be more savvy about how we implement business. And to understand, again, chess, not checkers. Every restaurant don't gotta be soul food. Every restaurant or organization we do doesn't necessarily have to have black employees all the time. Strategy-wise, when you want your business to succeed in certain markets. So you could be sophisticated enough to be a black person that owns an Italian restaurant. You can go sell pizza and pasta and have your whole staff be Italian, but your black ass is the owner getting the profits and bringing it back to your community. So we can be more creative and innovative and sophisticated in what businesses we create and how we run them.
I love supporting black businesses. I'm an advocate for black businesses. Obviously, I will spend my money in a black organization quickly. But it's only so many soaps I can buy, so many shea butters I can buy, it's only so many t-shirts I'm wanting to buy. It's good to have these type of businesses, but now we gotta graduate beyond that. We gotta have these real meaningful businesses that create dependency on the black community, on us. We don't own any type of railroads, we don't own any type of automobile companies, we don't own any type of mineral company, we don't own any type of aerospace type stuff, right? So I think until we get to that point when we start creating meaningful businesses and that people are dependent on us, we won't get that respect.
Be aware of the competition. Be aware, do your research, but don't focus in on heavily that. Focus on you, your brand, your customer. Understand your customer needs.
You have the Korean-owned beauty supply stores. You know, they can be in competition with each other, but they all still in business, they all operate, and they obviously are doing very well because they're all still open. And guess what? They selling to us.
If you look at all the beauty supply products, there's black people on all the products, but majority of them aren't owned by us.
They market to us to catch our attention, but what's frustrating to me is how can a male Caucasian tell me about my hair care needs and tell me what I need to use on my hair? So that was my goal, was to not only make good products, but to also show that, you know, I'm the face of my brand and, you know, I am an African-American woman, so I understand your struggles. You know, I can relate to your problems because we have the same problem. And that was the vision behind creating My Yellow Organics, was to create natural and organic products that were affordable, but also work for our hair type and as well as healthy for us if absorbed in our bloodstream.
So within 2 years, we've been able to accomplish quite a bit. We've generated well over 8 million consumers around the world globally that shop with us today. We are now in just about 3,000 Sally stores around the country. We just entered Target, and basically we're going to be in hundreds of their stores around the country, right? So that's Sally, Target, etc. We've been blessed to employ 15 full-time employees. We're employing within our community and showing and encouraging them certain things.
I had no business experience, so I had to learn everything myself.
We haven't done nothing great, because what we're doing, you, and everyone else can do. Think about this.
When I first started this business, I didn't start this business chasing money. I was chasing a vision of, you know, becoming an entrepreneur and becoming an entrepreneur to inspire other African-American women as well.
Our mindset isn't about the money. The money gonna be there. We don't chase the money. We wanna make a difference. Entrepreneurship is possible. That dream that you have is possible. You're one idea away from something great. Just think about that.
Sadly, white people have been programmed in several ways because of the dirty deed that we did and because of all the propaganda that was created, the dirty deed being slavery and genocide toward indigenous people. But I think because of these dirty deeds, even after slavery ended, white America's greatest fear was black retribution, that somehow white people, the bully is going to be paid back for what they did to the slaves. So white people operate a lot out of fear. So when white people see a person of color, whether it's in the street, walking through their neighborhood, or walking close to their car, or passing by them in the street, or if they see Black Lives Matter simply standing up for their rights and protesting, a lot of white people are scared. They're very scared, they're very fearful. In a way, they're cowards because they don't want to live in reality. They don't want to think about why these people are angry, and they don't want to think about why they're scared. So there's this irrational fear that white people, and especially the police, operate out of. And that all goes back to white supremacy. It goes back to the way we've been programmed historically. And it goes back to the fear of karma and the fear of black retribution. But yet, black people are not in a position to kill white America because they just don't have the numbers, and also they don't have the intent. They've never demonstrated that. What black people want, if you ask me, is they want justice.
Justice is supposed to be the result of correct law. But so far, no laws have produced justice. So you don't have justice anywhere on the planet. And mostly that's because of what? The law of white supremacy.
Our system is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, but let's be real, it's not. You are guilty until you are proven innocent. Black men are locked up, they are thrown away, the keys tossed more than any other race.
Well, let me give it to you this way. When you look at the incarceration population across the United States of America is 51% African American. Ask me how many Asian Americans are in prison. Not many of them. You know why? Because they own businesses and they have resources and assets that ensures that they can breed out to their communities, that they don't need to have to go that route because they have help, they have assistance.
You have blatantly racist people in the judicial system. Sometimes I come across prosecutors who will give me one deal for one client who's white and another deal for another client who's black. And I started looking back and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. They have virtually the same record or no record. They have no difference in their background or what they're doing, ages, anything like that, except for the fact that one is black and one is white. And it blew my mind.
Judge Olin Stevens, had some issues because he was speaking up against the use of all-white juries to convict black defendants. I saw black people stepping up to support him. The system really broke him down. They made him apologize like a little boy in front of everybody and apologize for things he didn't do wrong, and it really bothered me. And there were people that stepped up in the community and said, how can we raise money for him? How can we at least tell his story, etc. And I thought that was really admirable. But then at the same time, the challenge with that is, on one hand, you're sort of conflicted because on one hand, you want him to be in the system because he's still going to be a judge, and we got brothers that are still going to go in front of the court system. But on the other hand, you're thinking, well, why is he so heavily dependent upon this system? Like, why couldn't he have just gone in there and told those people to kiss his ass and speak the truth? A lot of us are forced to represent a lie because we're afraid of the punishment and the consequences of telling the truth.
You know what? That's the problem with the system. That's why we can't change, because people don't want to ruffle feathers. People don't want to get in somebody else's face and call them out on what they're doing. So I'm not going to live my life like that. I'm going to go in and ruffle feathers, because if that's what I need to do to make a change, then that's what I need to do. I think as attorneys, we have a responsibility to try and help this situation that's going on in our country. But you also have to take responsibility yourself. Because one of the most frustrating things as a criminal defense attorney with a client who is black is to sit out in our jury pool and in walks 50 people. Out of those 50, you'll have maybe 5 that are African American. Inevitably, they do everything they can to get off a jury. You want a change in your system, in your justice system, why would you try to get off the jury? Taking that time out of your life and sitting on a jury panel could save my client's life.
I checked my phone a while ago and found out that Hillary Clinton doing the whipping nay for nigga votes. I meant cool vote for the black folks, and it's crazy. Got a husband who get praised, he put a cock in a thought's mouth in the White House, that's that ignorant shit we feed off of. It took us to grow from 1999 to this time to find out that Bill ain't our nigga, and Hillary ain't your bitch. Oh, they care about black folks, but when Black Lives Matter approached Mrs. Clinton, she always for some reason hit the switch and remind us what a nigga is. Bill Clinton, the devil behind mass incarceration for black Americans. Donald Trump funded by the KKK. Bernie Sanders is Jewish. What the hell you worried about anyway? They run everything. Even Barack Obama called a thug during the reaction to Freddie Gray. We watched him from 2008 just like every other president, hair turned gray on the way out the door. Sad because many choose to ignore and say, but you have a black president. So what? And your point? So tell me, what's your point? What's your reason for believing in the system and don't even care to see your ass breathing? If you're a person that's non-white in the system, realize that no matter how Gucci you think you got it, we're all behind enemy lines. You ain't nothing but a price tag, nigga. And I ain't just talking about black folks, nigga. I'm talking about you. Everybody who classified as non-white. What is a nigga? A person that deserves to be mistreated. Meanwhile, black folks the only ones that get heated when it's taken out of context. I don't need your glasses, I don't need your contact to see that these white supremacists trying to exterminate me. I got a homeboy that call me Hugh P. Reasons every time I get to preaching, and I'm damn sure not reaching, so how am I or any other person spreading empowerment crazy? If you ask me, I think you insane. They remind us over and over again that we ain't shit. Just check our American names. Does it fit our heritage, or we just holding on to it out of respect of our parents? Every new generation is supposed to bring more knowledge and tools to the table, so doing things the same exact way as our teachers ain't logic. They got us in the project with the leftovers and wonder why we ain't concerned about black on black crime. Well, why haven't you been concerned of the unjustified death from people in our groups? Exclude the adults, what about the youths? I wonder what Emmett Till, Trayvon Martin, and Kendra Johnson would say if they came back from the grave. I wonder how their parents would react if they did things the other way. They'll be classified as crazy. Brother, ease up, it ain't that serious. Sad because we'll skip Melanin Code and Hidden Color for Eddie Murphy Delirious. We'll watch Roots 1 and 2 pass it on like a STD. Them old slave movies ain't nothing but a disease. They ain't displaying the real cure on the screen about how we once were kings and queens, but we don't care. We just pretend we do. Pretend we care until the devil in our hair. America don't want families around anymore, especially the black ones. And the words in the eyes of the white supremacists, if we don't keep these prison fools, how our kids gonna eat? How my uncle, cousin, sister, brother gonna maintain a job? This right here is the motherfucking mob, and the words to Boosie. The biggest drug in the game ain't drugs itself, it's coochie. Think it's the game, yo? Every time a nigga died, it was a bitch that was horny the night before, and the words to Tupac. Group economics is the only way out of this drought. Ain't it about emotion? It's about the dollar bill, silver and gold. You can't stop God, Mother Nature from doing their work while you sleeping and praying the enemy collecting your money out the church. It's time to wake up. But the oppression to so many of us feels too good to walk away from the plantation. So you just can't save everybody. You got to do for yourself. And the ones that's willing to invite the help, it's all about empowerment. Equality, I don't think so. Not as long as the system is still in full effect. So until then, do good service amongst others. And don't be afraid to stand up and check our oppressors.
I was asked this question a few months ago when I was running for office, you know, why do black people vote Democrat? Well, because it's the generational thing. Our parents vote Democrat, or our grandparents vote Democrat.
We get so caught up in Democrat or Republican, right wing or left wing when it's all the same bird.
Racism, it exists everywhere, not only in the Democratic Party, in the Republican Party, in the Green Party, in the pink, red, blue, black, whatever party you want to be a member of.
We know that voting Democrat has not changed our condition. We know that does not work. We know that doesn't work. Which, what does that mean? That means you have to find a new approach. And you know the current process is not working. Why in the are you doing the same thing over and over and over again?
We done caught hell under a white president, under a black president, so it's time we start focusing on them and focus on us.
History shows that people tell us they're gonna do this, and they never do anything for us directly. And then you look at everybody else, you look at the Hispanics, you look at the Asians, you look at the gays, they're putting people in office with the mindset they're gonna get something in exchange, and you see it happen. We give away our vote and don't ask for anything in exchange. We're just so happy to put our first black president in there and enjoy the symbolism of what their vote gave America or gave our community.
Black people voted Barack Obama in and then went home and sat on their asses. They voted and we waited on something to happen. We never went and asked for anything. So when people bring up, well, Barack Obama did this for the gay community, Barack Obama did this for this community. Well, they put their resources together. They created a political bloc and they demanded something and they got it. We did nothing.
So it's very important that we are politically mature enough to understand that we just don't go with anybody that comes around election season, says the right things to us, and we go make the votes to put them in office when they really don't got a genuine concern for our community. We just gotta wake up and wise up.
We need regular meetings to hold local politicians accountable and not be solely focused on President Barack Obama or Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
We tend to focus on the presidential politics so much, but what's most important is what's happening right at home. We have the opportunity to vote in mayors and judges and sheriffs, and these people shape the kind of community that we're gonna have.
We cannot teach our children that they must just be voters. We must teach them that they can be those who pass the vote.
I ran for alderman at the age of 27. We were so close to victory by only raising $80,000 compared to a campaign that had $1 million. I still only came 76 votes short of victory. Well, less than a year later, I decided that I was not going to give up. I was determined that no one can outwalk me, no one could outtalk me, and no one loved my community more than I did. So less than a year later, we came back and we won by 500 votes. So I chose to run for office to show younger people to not only get interested in voting, but to say we're gonna have a voice too. I look forward to seeing the youngest alderman or the youngest committeeman or the youngest governor in office one day.
What my solution is, as a people, that we get on the same page and we do our own vote and we worry about our own circumstances, our own organization, and stop worrying about what we do under someone else's flag. I'm talking about literally organizing a black vote, getting our 100 most influential people in a room where we vote on our own nationality. Legally, African American is not a nationality. The Supreme Court and World Court does not accept African Americans as a legitimate nationality or identity. So there's a path through World Court for a legal identity. And that's called a plebiscite, a public vote. So we get together, regardless of our sexual orientations, religions, everything else, and we vote. We have an online vote for our people. I break this all down in my book. And we have an influential vote of our influencers. And we actually vote on our own name, Africans in America, Pan-Africans, melanated people, whatever the hell we want to be. We vote on our own name, our own identity, under our own flag, create our own anthem, our own pledge, our own bylaws, our own core values, our own constitution, right? Even as American citizens, we still need our own national origin, right? And we don't have one because we're an assortion of African tribes and countries that were brought here and enslaved here, or some of us were here as Moors or whatever, right? All those things. But right now, we are one people, one like circumstance. So my point is, I put our unity first, and we can sophisticatedly and as a civilized people, vote and orchestrate our own unity. Then we focus on our justice. Our justice goes through World Court, where we get justice, holding America accountable for our human rights violations, genocide, second-class citizenship, our Holocaust and enslavement. And then we work on our repair. Self-repair, right? Before reparations or restitution or repair aid from the government, which is due, I'm all about that, we gotta focus on our self-repair. From parenting, civil disobedience, civil law, African history, to bankruptcy, to real estate, commercial real estate, business. So we have to be intentional again. No matter what our differences are, they're gonna be differences, but we gotta be intentional on our unity, our justice, and our repair. And that's where we win as a people.
White supremacists like to appoint leaders for black people, and then they build them up and then tear them down. And then black people wait for another 50 years until they build up somebody else and then watch them get torn down. And on and on and on. And the white supremacists just sit back and laugh.
People will say, if you don't vote, you don't count. If you don't make a choice, if you don't participate, then you deserve whatever you get. And that's really not true. The American people deserve better than that. And so the system really is rigged. It's rigged by the elite. It's rigged by people at Harvard and Yale University. If you look at the Supreme Court, almost every single member of the Supreme Court at some point attended Harvard University. And America thinks it's a democracy, but they're really an aristocracy. They're really a country that serves the elite, and that's it. So in terms of the way the economic system runs, we serve the elite. In terms of how the political system runs, we serve the elite. The masses are kind of just pawns on a table that are manipulated to the advantage of the wealthy. But the real change will occur with actions that we commit to as a community, not based on what some white guy in the White House does. In the Asian community, their voter participation rates are incredibly low. They just don't feel that they're going to get what they need by voting for the right politician. But what they do, though, is they combine themselves economically and socially. They keep a very close knit. I was riding over here through Chinatown, and I just saw nothing but Asian people everywhere, and Asian businesses, and Asian, and it's sort of like, okay, the mindset is one of solidarity. They stick together, they build their wealth, they educate their children to the highest levels. They push for entrepreneurship, not just going out chasing jobs. And so, at the end of the day, I think that we as black people have to find a strategy that's sort of outside the box.
There are 9 areas of activity. The 7th area is religion. The white supremacists, when they got the idea that they were going to establish something called white supremacy, they said we have to dominate these people in all areas of activity, including their religion. Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Confucianism, Judaism, all of these other religions don't come anywhere close to being as strong as the religion of white supremacy.
White supremacy and religion go hand in hand. People used the Bible, manipulated Christianity and religion in order to sell the idea of white superiority, the lies and the myths of white superiority.
The religions that we have sort of clung to in our lives breed a sense of greater segregation.
I think that religion was a tool that was used to manipulate black people into being very passive. If I convince you of little things like you should seek to forgive me before you seek to sort of get revenge, or that your rewards are going to come in the afterlife, or that you don't have to solve your own problems, Jesus is going to do it for you, then effectively what I've made you into is a very easy victim of assault, rape, manipulation, robbery, whatever it is I want to do to you.
We can't continue to just sit back and pray and say, at some point, God is going to make this better. Somebody's coming back to save us. We got to be able to and be willing to save ourselves.
The Bible declares that faith without work, then, is dead. What that means is to pray is to have faith, right? But the Bible is saying that you can pray, but the prayer without your work is dead. It has no life. The life that subsequents the power of the prayer means that you do something as well. So I would say this to the person who believes that you can just pray away everything. Well, that's not biblically sound.
Even if you listen to the lyrics of the song Lift Every Voice and Sing, there's a lot of conversation about victimhood, about the pain and the trauma that black people have gone through, every horrible thing that we've experienced. There's also a lot of talk about God, how God carried us through, God's going to get us over it, etc. But there's no conversation about how we're going to respond to this. Are we going to fight back? There's no conversation about who did this to you. We are afraid to say white people did it. Not all white people, but white supremacists did this to us. It does not mean that spirituality can be a bad thing, or faith is a bad thing, or going to church is a bad thing, because there's a lot of strength in the black church. But you must also understand that this idea of instantly forgiving everybody who does some horrible thing to you, like when Dylan Roof shot up all those black people, you had these Negroes begging for forgiveness. Why are you doing this publicly? What you're doing is you're kissing the white man's ass so that they'll like you more. That's why you do it publicly. Because if you did it privately, then it wouldn't be an issue. You could just go home, pray to Jesus, say, okay, I forgive him, and keep it to yourself. Why are you announcing it on national TV? Well, because you're trying to gain favor with your abusive oppressor who does not give a damn about you.
I think the church, and especially the urban church, has to be very vocal about the disparities between laws that govern businesses, that govern banks and community banks, that also play a role in responsibility to fair housing lending, and also equal opportunity for business owners and homeowners, and also the sort of disparity between the education that our urban children are receiving.
When a black person puts 10% of their income or more into a church basket, and then that money is put into a white bank, the same white bank that won't give loans to black people, won't finance their businesses. Who is that helping? It's not helping us. When you go into a black home and you see pictures of white Jesus everywhere, that's not helping us at all. The most destructive thing about Christianity is the white face that we see on the abstraction that is Jesus Christ. The story of Jesus existed before Jesus himself, and it's an abstraction. An abstraction is an idea. The idea of Jesus is goodness, it's a savior, it's everything right, it's beauty, it's all of these magnificent kind of ideas. So what has happened is they have placed a symbol onto this abstraction. Our minds have to put a symbol with something. That's how we remember things, by symbols. Anytime you hear something, the word car, the word house, your mind automatically brings in the image of that. So when that child goes outside of the home, what are they seeing? They're seeing billboards, they're seeing movies, they're seeing pamphlets. Everything that they are seeing is reinforcing this idea that this God, the one that your parents have already told you is God, this God is white. The problem is that when we have black children, they look in the mirror and they see something that is exactly opposite of that positive abstraction. And they have absolutely nothing to look at and say, I can see me in this. Everything is white. So we have to start putting black faces in our homes. Now, I'm not saying that people should get rid of Jesus. I'm not saying that at all. But at least give your children, at least give your family a black Jesus. Give them something that looks like themselves.
So my religious philosophy is this: follow any organization, any religion, any pastor, church, mosque, or whatever that puts the unity, justice, and repair of black people first. If you're part of a religion or organization that's not supporting your people and uplifting your people, you're probably part of the wrong organization.
We're spiritual people, and everybody was born for a purpose. And it's not to kill each other, it's to support each other.
Love is not religious. We don't have a heaven or hell to put anybody in. And it is not our place to judge one or another. It is our place to be the likeness and reflection of God.
If you're atheist, Christian, Muslim, Jews, Hindus, no one is holding us back. We have no excuses. The white man, the yellow man, the purple man, it is you and you only. It is me and me only that is accountable on how I treat another human being.
As the black church, we have to be the model citizens of pulling ourselves together and supporting each other and being there for one another. And to me, that doesn't take a religion to do.
Sex is the second most powerful motivating force among people. People are interested in sex all the time. Books are written about sex. People are trying to dissect sex. TV programs on sex and movies written based on sex. Interaction between people based on something called SEX. Race or racism and sex. You have sexual factors involved in that. You have the two most volatile motivating forces among the people of the known universe.
There are certain things that we are trained to believe from a very early age as black people that will affect who we choose to have as our mates. So for example, you might grow up, especially in the South, you have a lot of brothers that grow up thinking that light-skinned women are more attractive than dark-skinned women. So that might lean them toward seeing lighter skin as more attractive, or even white women. You know, if a brother walks up and he's got a white girl on his arm, I don't judge anything at that point. I don't really, it's not my business. But if he's a person that says, for example, I only date white women because black women are ridiculous and ratchet or whatever, well, that's a problem. That's a mental illness, right? So I would say that your dating preferences can say a lot about who you are. But then sometimes, you know, you may find love in a package that you didn't expect, and I don't think it's anybody's right to really judge that. And really what's tough about it is only the person who's in that relationship really kind of has some idea of why they're in the relationship or what the dynamics of that relationship happen to be. I do also think that that dating outside of your race does come with the risk that that you may go through some sort of cultural evolution in terms of who you are as an African American, and your partner may not understand that. You know, there was one brother that we met one time who had a white girlfriend, and he literally came out of our event and said, he said, I don't know if I could date this white girl no more, because when I talk about Black Lives Matter and I talk about, you know, Black Wall Street and our racial history, she doesn't get it. Her family doesn't get it. So they liked him more when he was more assimilationist. They don't like him when he's been pseudo-radicalized by knowing his history.
There's nothing wrong with interracial marriage or interracial dating. Why would there be? But, you know, ironically and funny enough, there are white supremacists, overt white supremacists that hate black people, but yet will date and have sex with black people.
Me personally, I couldn't see myself dating or building a life with someone outside of our race. But if you build a relationship with someone outside of our race, but you put our race first, but your household got the red, black, and green flag up, and you raise them mixed kids to understand the unity, justice, and repair of our people, we all Gucci.
I think the problem when it comes to relationships is we have a lot of women who are eligible, who are ready to be married, and just good women. And then we know that we have such a limited supply of men who are really good men who meet that threshold for women that they could see themselves marrying. So that issue, so little men, so many women, I think that poses a big problem. You know, this is where a lot of cheating comes into play, chronically single, people misusing and abusing their positions in other people's lives comes into play. And I just think it all boils down to seeing the woman for what she is and who she is, and respecting and acknowledging who she is as our creators, as the mothers of the next generation. Having that respect for her, I think it starts there with the men.
But it's up to us black men who know better to teach these other men to do better.
You have to understand the kind of world you're in, because there's a war going on between white and non-white.
It is time, way past time, for our country to recognize the KKK as an official terrorist group.
The KKK is a deplorable organization. They're a hate group.
And I think the reason America has never recognized the KKK as a terrorist group is because it protected white people. And I think that this country was built for Europeans. Sadly, people of color built this country, but this country was made for white folks. And that's why KKK has been tolerated, because the KKK is America's baby. It's their child. The KKK has infiltrated the police department, have infiltrated our political system unethically, committing murder, committing brutality, abusing their power. Too many policemen, too many white folks ignore it, excuse it, tolerate it, and remain silent.
In 26 years of doing law enforcement, I have seen racism.
You have police officers that make stereotypes themselves. You know, we have some detectives in our homicide unit, where I'm from, where they basically pick out who they think did it, and that's how their entire investigation is. It surrounds that one person.
We can talk about racism within the Chicago Police Department.
And yes, there are good policemen and there are good white people, but there's not enough police that are holding their fellow officers accountable. They turn the other cheek when they see violations, when they see people acting and behaving criminally.
I don't think that the overall population of law enforcement is racist. I think you have officers who give their lives to protect us citizens. I think that they go into communities, and after they've been there for so long, they do what? They start stereotyping people. And they don't realize that they're not just doing it when they're doing their job, they're doing it when they go out to eat with with their families, when they put, hang up that badge for the day and go do whatever it is that they do. And then it leads over back into their job every day. The problem is, stereotyping somebody is being racist. And that's what I think we have to own up to. We need more cameras. And I think as we can see now, what happened?
Those wonderful cameras has caught a lot of excessive, brute, gross, deadly force on our African American community.
We have helicopter video, we have high def videos, dash cam videos, and we're starting to see the mistakes that they make.
In the police department and the justice system, the culture has to change. And also white America has to change. American culture has to change.
Police training is ever changing. It's a very, very difficult job. I would challenge anybody to look at professions across the board and find one that trains more than we do or expects more than we do. So training is not the issue in my view. I believe the problem is in the application and the interpretation of the person that's being trained. What's their psychological makeup? What's their threshold for anger?
I think these officers reaching out more in the community, try and interact with these people. Don't always be wearing that badge like, hey, I'm looking for something you're doing wrong. Because that's not what law enforcement's supposed to be about, right? It's protect and serve the community.
I do think that it is important for us to police our own communities, for us to go back and for us to reach back into those communities and be willing to help people that we don't know.
When I was growing up, it was 2 police officers on each beat, and we knew them, and they were there forever. And we had mental health issues in our community, and they knew it, and they made sure that they didn't arrest or shoot the person. They made sure that they got back to the house.
Police officer in any community sees so much that sometimes it's traumatic to them. Homeless, starving, people that have nowhere to go but to us. I've seen people that are desperate, socioeconomically depressed, that commit crimes that are not necessarily criminals. That's what police officers see every day. There are millions of reasons why a person commits crime. Socioeconomic reasons, desperation, evil, opportunistic, necessity. Nowhere in my teachings did it say pigment and skin color causes crime. So why is that interjected into the conversation? Where did that come from?
The black-on-black crime is a bigger threat and a bigger problem in the black community than the police use of force.
When you talk about black-on-black crime, we gotta understand that for the most part, that is something that has been branded by the media to make us feel lower or less about ourselves. Because the same way there's black-on-black crime, quote-unquote, there's white-on-white crime, there's Asian-on-Asian crime, it's called proximity crime. You commit crimes against those you live around, people that are in your proximity because they're in your community. So obviously, that's likely where you're gonna commit any crimes.
Michael Vick's puppies, sure, they had a lot of dog-on-dog violence in those dog kennels with all these puppies, but where did the violence actually come from? These puppies were not born to be killers. They didn't want to go and fight each other to the death. They were put in a cage, in a confined space, where they were starved to death and put into situations where they had to fight or die, right? So effectively, you don't look at the puppies for the source of the violence. You look at who designed the cage, who created the circumstances within which these dogs have to fight each other to the death. Well, that responsibility belongs to the person who's running the dog kennel, not to the dogs themselves. So for black people, we are put in this confined space, in this situation, where the conditions are set such that black-on-black violence, what appears to be black-on-black violence is occurring, but you have to understand that these environments are structured and created by forces that are beyond our control.
The white-on-white crime rate is not far from the black-on-black crime rate, statistically.
Who's committing most of the crimes? Well, let's talk about sex crime. Mostly white, between 20 and 45, 50 years of age. Let's talk serial killers. It's caught up a little bit, but it's probably 60-40 white male, middle class, 20s to 60s. So those are the heinous call them great white sharks of crime. But we don't emphasize that. We don't say, well, yeah, blacks are committing most of the crime, but whites are butchering people and they're serial killers.
As soon as an issue comes up where there's police brutality, the first thing that someone is going to deflect to is, well, what about what's happening in Chicago?
So Chicago is considered one of the most dangerous cities in the United States.
Because Chicago is strategically located in the middle of the country, it becomes a hub for a lot of the drugs that go all throughout the United States. They've actually linked a lot of the Chicago killings to 1 or 2 drug cartels down in Mexico. So a lot of the Chicago violence is not due to people in Chicago choosing to kill each other. Second thing is, when these drugs come through the city of Chicago, the question you have to ask yourself is, why do the guns and the drugs end up only in the black neighborhoods but don't get to the white neighborhoods? Well, I think a lot of that is because we have corruption. We have corrupt politicians, police officers, etc., who benefit from this violence, who benefit from the drug trade.
It's always been organized. Russian mob, Irish mob, Italian mob. There's too many weapons of mass destruction. And when I say weapons of mass destruction, I mean the guns that was rejected from the Army, that was rejected from the federal government, and they're let out in our communities.
One brother told me, he's a former gangbanger, he said that sometimes in the alley, there'll just be a box of guns just waiting, and they don't know where the guns came from. So, and we know that black people don't manufacture guns in the south side of Chicago. We know they don't grow coca leaves. So when you see drugs and guns coming in and causing so much violence, the question is, well, where do they come from? Not just who makes them and who brings them, but who allows them in the door.
Even if it's not Chicago, even if there is no more black on black crime, they will always defer to something else to keep the attention off of what they are doing to our community.
So now we must come together and protect each other and be each other's vanguards. Because killing is not the answer. Because you're not gaining, you're losing.
I hustled from the time I was 15 to 25. I knew everything there was to know about cooking coke, selling crack, bagging coke, compressing coke. Like, I immersed myself in a drug game. I had all the stash boxes in my cars. I had all the connects, all the plugs. I was 17 with like $100,000 in high school. What led me to get out of the drug game is that I was 25 years old with 3 felonies in 3 different states, 2.5 years already served in prison, selling dope in Newark, New Jersey with sex, money, murder, bloods, and killers and gangsters. And I'm like, yo, like, this is not like, I'm not guaranteeing myself no kind of win. This is like looking at my life at 25 and asking myself where I'm gonna be when I'm 30. I only can see a loss for myself. Even with the perfect operation, all it takes is for one person to tell on you. You ain't even gotta get caught with no drugs, no guns or nothing. If you're in a dope game, all it takes is for one person to say, I got it from him. They locking your ass up for conspiracy. Ain't nothing you could do about it. So I quit. I decided, I broke my trap phone. I had 4 ounces left. I gave it to my partner. And I said, I'm gonna try real estate full time and see what it do. And it didn't happen overnight, but within a year, I caught wind, I caught fire, I caught traction. And then within 3 years, I made my first million in the industry. And within a few years, I became a multi-millionaire in real estate, taking my same hustle and talent just to a new place. I took my talents to South Beach. When a game is such a trap, when it's such a lose-lose situation, but you got an opportunity to take that same charisma, that same skills, that same business, that same hustle, that same grind, and go into something else that ain't got none of those risks, but all of the rewards, it's a no-brainer. So are you a drug dealer or are you a hustler? A drug dealer can only sell drugs, but a hustler can sell anything.
Early on, when God called the people of Israel, the one thing that they did, the Bible says that they took all of what they owned and put it together. And they took the communities that they lived in and they shared with each other. And they did not forget about the person behind them or next to them. And to me, if I had to dream about what that kind of reality or heaven on earth looks like, it has to look like that. That the neighbor is concerned with the neighbor, the brother is concerned with the sister is concerned with the brother. That's what I feel like heaven on earth is that loving God and loving neighbor and loving community and loving humanity.
A
perfect world would just be that a person of color wouldn't have to have their talk with their kids about what to do to not be killed by the police. Perfect world would be able to have our children, all of our children, taught the truth racially, historically, and accurately about what actually happened in our country, the good and the bad, not just the good, not just the European white version, but the actual whole entire version of what actually happened. If our justice system actually operated in a just manner, if our financial systems actually operated in an equitable, non-discriminatory manner, if our health care didn't have racial disparities, and if a person could go to the hospital without having to worry about, is this doctor gonna treat me the same he would as a white person because I'm black or because I'm brown? If a black person could just get in their car and drive into rural America without having to fear for their life. If they could walk into a store without being racially profiled. If they could walk down the street without being lynched by the police. This would just be basic things that would be a better world for all of us.
I have Caucasian friends who are like, I don't understand why they're upset about the Confederate flag. It's just the flag of the South. Nowhere in the world has anyone lost a war and still get to wave their flag. Nowhere in the world has anyone ever lost a war and still get to wave their flag. I mean, even when you play flag wars at sleepaway camp, if the blue cabin loses their flag, the red cabin has that flag now. You don't get it back.
You hear this a lot. Now, you mentioned racism. Well, why don't they go back to Africa? They don't like it here. See what happens to them there. What does that mean? This is their country. This is our country.
The United States is our home too. We played a part in building this country. This is ours. But one of the things that we lost is our connection to our home continent of Africa. They're waiting for us to reconnect. Asian people benefit from being connected to China. Europeans benefit from being connected to different parts of Europe. Mexicans and people from South America benefit from connection to their home countries as well. So for black folks, I think we need a home. We need to reconnect to what Africa is. What we have to do is sort of filter through all the propaganda, all the lies we've been told about Africa to separate us and sort of close that psychological and economic gap such that we can support them, they can support us, and eventually that's where your strength comes from. Because if you try to build the root of your economic and political strength right here in America, this is very dry soil. This is not a good place to build the foundation of strong economic movements. You must make sure your roots exist around the world so that if they see a black Wall Street being built in the United States, they can't do what they did in 1921 and just burn it down and make it go away. If you have roots all around the globe and you're doing trade all around the planet, then they really can't shut that down. That becomes a very powerful force.
A culture is always going to project that which reflects it. And they're going to project the best. Just like when we go on social media, we project our best on social media. Cultures project their best, or what they feel is their best. So they're gonna put their prettiest white woman out there, they're gonna put their bravest soldiers out there, they're gonna put their superheroes out there, and everything is going to reflect their culture. We live in that culture. That is why it hurts us. So everything is not about hurting the black person. A lot of it is about building their culture, which in turn hurts the black person because we don't have a lot of those superheroes. So what it does is it falls on the parent to create that culture in the home. You need those black superheroes in the home. You need black angels in the home. You need black deities or gods in your home. You need black superheroes and comics in your home. Your home needs to be filled with blackness because the world around you, as soon as your child steps out of that house, is gonna be filled with whiteness. But when you create a black, Afrocentric culture in your home, that becomes the norm. And when that child walks outside of the door, that becomes odd to them. White supremacy, white culture, white superheroes becomes odd to them. And that's what we want. I want that to be odd to you. And what I want to be normal to you is anything and everything that is Afrocentric. Because that is what's gonna make you more powerful. That's what's gonna empower you. That's what's gonna make you stronger. And that's what's gonna build up the black community for the next generations.
So let's wake up. Let's wake up, world. This is a collective effort. We need all hands on deck.
If your white friends cannot understand the struggle and the series of events that are going on around you, and if you're feeling as if though when you say Black Lives Matter, that means you're anti-cop, or now that you're anti-white, that's not your responsibility. Let that burden be their burden. Know your truth, understand your truth. I fight for good cops. I fight for good white people, I fight for good black people. Wrong is wrong, right is right.
If white America could take some responsibility racially and do three things: acknowledge our system and our culture of white supremacy, act, stand up against it, try to dismantle it, and then educate other white people. And the reason I think white America has responsibility to try to dismantle it and to do these three things is because, one, we still benefit from it, and number two, we are the community and the people that started the damn thing.
I would say to my melanated people all around the world, you were here first, and you're the most imitated people across the planet. And whether we speak the same language or whether we were raised in the same atmosphere, there's something beautiful inside of our skin that causes envy and distraction in other people.
I think that we're extraordinary. I think that black people, if you remember, we are the descendants of the survivors of the Middle Passage. That was one of the worst atrocities in all of human history, and we survived that. We survived 400 years of the worst kind of slavery known to man. We are extraordinary. We can overcome pretty much anything. We're pretty much unstoppable when we put our mind to something.
When I feel like there's something that I can't do, I think about everything that my ancestors were able to do. I think about all of the things that they did in Africa. I think about the rulers. I think about the chiefdoms. I think about the kings and the queens. I think about the engineers and the architects and all of the things that they were able to do. And it lets me know that I have that running through my veins and that I can do absolutely anything because they have already done everything.
Mind over matter, so before flesh. We living in a cold world. They'll take your heart at your chest. See the most gifted students take the hardest tests. Don't let the class define you. You can live beyond that desk. Only one can confess when my iris has rest. I mean, I seen fiends flex for the flower at the Pyrex. See the sword fortified my mindset. Either door I choose, I see success. With work, feeling like recess. Not the smartest guy, but I feel I got a keen sense. With some promo, hold on jogging. You can keep your BS to fertilize your garden. While I slide by, beg your pardon. Squeeze through, then step in the scene too. I'm just being me, but I see some Mr. Me Tools who'll spend a whole check just to get fresh back. Touch their chest cause they haven't had a meal yet. See they lost in a vanity. I'm headstrong, still dapper, but won't let them damage me. Mind over matter, so before flesh. We living in a cold world. They'll take your heart at your chest. See the most gifted students take the hardest tests. Don't let the class define you. You can live beyond that desk. Now everybody wanna party hard. The radio and TV's all Mardi Gras. In my section I seen what you never saw. In person, only on projectors. Prayers to the Most High, hoping He protect us. Bullets don't have names and can't get deflected. Red, blue, black flag will snatch your necklace. So don't come shining unless your sunscreen protected. Reckless detection of out of bounds flexing can get you on the news on witness protection. All cause you wanna flip blocks like Tetris. That's comedy for the kings, you looking like Cetric. Ha! So go ahead and entertain. And no, I won't intervene. But this is some advice if you stay in that lane. Remain low key and don't give your real name. Man, mind over matter, so before flesh. We living in a cold world. They'll take your heart at your chest. See the most gifted students take the hardest tests. Don't let the class define you. You can live beyond that death. They got your third eye vision so sold up. Cameras taking pictures on the corner. Strippers trying to meet their quota. Dealers trying to find a boulder. They got your third eye vision so sold up. Cameras taking pictures on the corner. Strippers trying to meet their quota. Dealers trying to find a boulder. Yeah.